Hello, my name is Susan Taylor. Bullfighting is not a fight at all, but the ritual torture killing of a frightened creature by a group of thugs. Bulls are tortured 2 days prior to the fight. They are kept in dark boxes for 2 days to disorientate them. Vaseline is smeared into their eyes to half blind them. They are fed laxatives and salt water to dehydrate them. Pins are stuck into their genitals and their bones are broken. When they enter the ring, they think their ordeal is over and they are running to freedom. Instead, they face a jeering crowd baying for their blood. Men on horseback, named picadors, plunge spears into their neck muscles to weaken them. Then men plunge banderillas, which are brightly coloured spears, into them. The matador kills the bull at the end by stabbing him in the neck. The bull vomits blood. The dead bull is dragged away by horses. Horses enter the bull rings pouring with sweat and trembling with fear. They are blindfolded, cotton wool is stuffed into their ears and noses, and their vocal cords are cut so they are unable to scream in pain if they are gored. They are deprived of all their senses. Horses are often gored by the bull. There are times when their intestines fall out of their stomachs and hang around their legs. Their intestines are crudely stitched back in. Horses in bull rings are old and have come to the end of their working lives. Their reward for serving man faithfully and uncomplainingly is to end their days in the bull ring. Bulls are not aggressive creatures and only fight back because they are tortured. There are rare occasions when bulls do kill matadors. Victor Barrio was killed on the 9th of July 2016. Ivan Fandino was killed in June 2017. Pablo Belando was seriously hurt when gored by a bull on the 25th of July 2016. When this happens, the bull is killed, I imagine very brutally, for daring to fight for his life. Not only that, his mother is killed for having given birth to a creature who fought for his life. What kind of twisted logic is that? In current European law, animals are recognised as sentient beings, acknowledging their ability to feel pain, suffer and also experience joy. The law says that as animals are sentient beings, full regard must be given to their welfare when creating new legislation or regulations. Securing this status for animals was a massive step forward for animal welfare in 1997. The recognition of animals as complex and intelligent creatures has been the cornerstone of European animal welfare legislation since that time. There are 5 EU animal welfare rules known as the 5 freedoms. They are as follows. Freedom from hunger and thirst, by ready access to fresh water and diet to maintain health and vigour. Freedom from discomfort, by providing an appropriate environment, including shelter and a comfortable resting place. Freedom from pain, injury or disease. Freedom to express normal behaviour. Freedom from fear and distress. Bullfighting contravenes all these 5 freedoms. I have written to the EU regarding this issue and I have received this response. The Commission would like to refer to its reply to petition 2013/1624, where it is stated in particular that this article, Article 13 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the EU, TFEU, does not constitute a legal base for the EU to act on all animal welfare issues. It requires taking consideration for the welfare of the animals only in the context of certain specified EU policies. In addition, such obligations must respect the Member States' cultural traditions. Would cultural traditions be an acceptable defence for female genital mutilation, slavery, child labour and burning people at the stake? I think not. Simply terming animal torture as culture does not take away the pain they will suffer. How can it be that some animals are protected but some are not, if they are all recognised as sentient beings? I did reply to the EU with the above points, but received no reply. The following is taken from the report entitled, "Does Bullfighting Represent a Psychological Danger for Young Spectators?" by Dr. J.P. Ritchie, psychiatrist, June 2008. Culture is a treasure house of meanings, but in this case we're looking at a very rigid conception of it. Unsurprisingly, the word tradition is used interchangeably with culture. Yet, while culture can be defined in terms of its transmission, horizontal or intergenerational, it may be defined just as easily by its evolving nature, since it is largely thanks to the evolution of culture that societies progress and humans adapt. Should culture be unchanging, we would still be using sharpened stones rather than computers. Should culture be unchanging, we would still be offering up our fellow beings for sacrifice rather than promoting human rights. To hang on to a rigid conception of culture is to risk weakening of moral judgment and unsettling of essential values in children and adolescents. We often notice that many of the difficulties from which our society suffers have their roots in discrepancies in the system that governs the individual. We teach our children in schools and within the family that violence is a bad thing and that we must not make other beings suffer. It makes no sense to teach them at the same time that gratuitous violence can be legitimate or even a good idea. It is unwise to teach them that we are allowed to make certain beings suffer for the sake of art, tradition or culture. The fight against violence subjected, observed or exerted by young people is a major preoccupation. It is not harmless to show them the spectacle of suffering, blood and death as if it bore some kind of aesthetic value or as something that can be justified by tradition or as representing cultural identity. Spain is a Roman Catholic country. Jesus Christ was born in a stable amongst the ox and ass. The ox is just another form of a bull and the ass another form of a horse, the two creatures tortured in bull rings. St. Francis of Assisi, patron saint of animals, taught kindness and compassion towards animals. The Pope has stated that animals have souls. Where there are spectators and a victim, there is a crucifixion. Yet, Catholic priests in Spain blessed the instruments of torture used by matadors on bulls. People who take part in torturing animals, or spectators who enjoy watching animals tortured to death, or anyone who supports it in any way at all, cannot claim to be Christians. There are no age restrictions on entry to bull rings, and children are taken to witness bullfights from a very young age. The psychiatrist report by Dr. J.P. Ritchie states, "This report has concluded that there is evidence which confirms that children suffer psychological damage as a result of witnessing bullfights. The United Nations, UN, has stated that being forced to watch the barbaric spectacle is incompatible with children's rights." In 2014, the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child has recommended that children should not attend or participate in bullfighting events because of their extreme violence. This enlightened decision from the UN backs up what experts have been saying for years. In summer 2013, 140 scientists and academics wrote to politicians in Spain pointing out that the promoting of animal abuse has a negative effect on society as a whole. For a child, watching an animal being tormented and killed is a traumatic experience. Over time, it can desensitise them to violence. In contrast, a recent study by Tufts University found that learning to care for an animal helps young people to develop better relationships and become more confident and empathetic. These are the qualities that progressive modern societies should be encouraging their children, rather than a taste for bloodshed. As Spanish model Ellen Rivas has said, glorifying the deliberate slaughter of animals should not be tolerated in a civilised society. Under the terms of the European Social Charter, Article 17, children have a right to their protection of health. Forcing children to witness bullfights has been proved to be harmful to their mental health and is therefore in contravention of this right. There are bullfighting schools in Spain where children can attend from aged 8 to train to become matadors. Film footage has been released showing children have been torturing calves to death as part of a practical exam at a bullfighting school in Madrid. Children are taught to torment and torture the young bulls and ultimately kill them. Spanish animal rights group PACMA, which released the footage, reports that attendance at the school is dwindling. The number of students enrolled has gone from 111 in 2003 to just 48 in 2013. This is hardly surprising. We've known for a long time that most Spanish people have no interest in bullfights or other barbaric events in which animals are killed for sport. But the school is being propped up by the government, from which it's just received a €30,000 prize. For a child, being forced to watch a bullfight can be traumatic enough, but encouraging children to participate in deliberately harming and killing an animal for amusement sends all the wrong messages to developing young minds and can lead young people to become adults who are dangerously desensitised to violence and have been stripped of their natural empathy. Compassion and kindness, not enthusiasm for inflicting pain and engaging in gratuitous violence, are the qualities that children need. These bullfighting schools must be shut down, not awarded cash. In addition to ignoring the right of bulls not to be tortured, they are flagrantly ignoring the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child report that exposure to bullfighting violates children's rights. Committee Vice President Sarah Oviedo said, "The partition of children and adolescents in bullfighting activities constitutes a grave violation of the articles of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, as they are being indoctrinated for a violent act." Bullfights are poorly attended. In 2015, animal rights activist Sandra Vasquez obtained a free ticket to attend a bullfight and went to film the cruelty. Sandra heard the dying creature crying out in pain and ran into the ring to comfort him and try and shield him from further harm. Sandra was pulled from the ring and the crowd hurled abuse at her. Sandra revealed that the bull ring was only a quarter full, despite free tickets given. According to polls, 76% of Spanish people are opposed to bullfighting. The reason it has continued is because it is heavily subsidised by the Spanish government. The President of Spain, Mariano Rajoy, is a strong defender of bullfighting. He has said that the tradition is an art form deeply rooted in Spanish history. He lifted the ban on live bullfights on state-run TV, and they are once again shown in the traditional 6 p.m. slot on TVE. Rajoy supported the Zero Tolerance campaign against violence towards women. He quoted on Twitter, "Every act of violence is a defeat of society," yet he supports this violence towards animals. Rajoy is also a Catholic. Catalonia voted to ban bullfighting in 2011. However, this was overturned by Spain's Constitutional Court in 2016, which stated that the ruling was unconstitutional. There was a huge demonstration in Madrid against bullfighting following this ruling. In 2015, the EU voted to end subsidies for bullfighting. The subsidies were not given for bullfighting, but for farmers to raise cattle. However, the money often went to bull breeders who bred bulls for bull rings. This amount was €100 million per year. There is a strong animal rights movement in Spain. PACMA is a political party which works for the rights of animals, environmental protection and social justice. In July each year there is the San Fermin festival of the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Spain, where the bulls are chased through the streets. Bulls are bred in fields and are not accustomed to the noise of the crowd or being surrounded by people. They are kept in crowded, dark enclosures, and when they are prodded onto the streets with electric shocks, they are momentarily blinded by the sunlight. They are terrified and hit by runners with rolled up newspapers. The corners of the bull's route are quite sharp, and the animals often lose their footing and slide into walls, breaking bones and injuring themselves. All the bulls who slip and slide on the streets of Pamplona are running towards a bloody and horrific death in the bull rings. In 2002, just 2 days before the first bull run, hundreds of activists, most wearing little more than a red scarf and plastic horns, ran through the streets of Pamplona for the running of the nudes. Now it's become a tradition in its own right. Each year, compassionate and fun-loving people from around the world gather in Pamplona before the running of the bulls to protest against cruelty and to show the city that it doesn't need to torture animals for the tourist trade. In addition to bullfighting, there are festivals throughout Spain which have animal torturing rituals. In 1987, a young woman named Vicky Moore heard that a donkey named Blackie was to be crushed to death at a Spanish fiesta. Vicky launched a campaign to save Blackie, and as a result, Blackie was saved and lived out the rest of his life in a donkey sanctuary in Devon. However, Vicky found that this was not an isolated case and that there are many festivals in Spain involving animal torture. Vicky dedicated her life to campaigning against bullfighting and these torture festivals. In 1995, Vicky was filming a bull who was being tortured for evidence to be presented to the European Union. Vicky found herself in the path of a bull and was tossed in the air and gored. She suffered severe injuries, including a punctured lung. Vicky continued to campaign, but never fully regained her health. She died in April 2000, aged 44. Her husband Tony continued the campaign until his death in 2013. Earlier this year, 2017, a festival took place in Foyos, Valencia. The horns of a bull were set alight. The bull committed suicide by smashing his head into a tree. This was filmed and the video has gone viral. Unfortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence. Setting fire to the horns of bulls causes excruciating pain, and they often try to commit suicide by crashing into walls. Bullfighting and animal torture festivals are completely unacceptable and are causing harm to animals, children, and indeed human beings. There is also the very real mental suffering it causes to people who find this behaviour horrific, and the thought of the suffering of the animals is too much to bear. 40,000 bulls die in Spanish bull rings each year. It is a national disgrace. I call upon the government of Spain to do what is right and stop this. I call upon the European Union to stop this. I call upon the Pope and the Catholic Church to speak out against this and condemn this outright. I dedicate this film to the memory of Vicky and Tony Moore.